When you hear the name Hannibal, what comes to mind? For most of us, it's this legendary image of a military genius, right? Elephants crossing the Alps, and this deep, all-consuming hatred for Rome. But what if I told you that the story we all know, the one about a man bound by a childhood oath of pure vengeance, isn't the whole story? Today, we're going to peel back the layers of the legend to find the truth.
This quote, "This is the bedrock of the entire Hannibal myth." According to the Roman histories, this is the promise a young Hannibal made to his father, never to be a friend of the Romans. It paints this picture of a man driven by nothing but a lifelong thirst for revenge.
I mean, just picture the scene. It is pure drama. You've got a 9-year-old boy, his hand on a sacrificial animal at an altar, swearing this unbreakable vow to his famous general father, Hannibal Barca. It's an incredibly powerful image, and it's defined Hannibal for centuries as Rome's most terrifying, hate-filled enemy.
But with any great story, you have to ask, where did it come from? It's a fantastic narrative for sure, but is it actually true? It's time we dig a little deeper and really question the legend we've all been told.
And here's the absolute key to all of this. Nearly everything we think we know about Hannibal was written by his enemies, the Romans. After they finally defeated Carthage, they didn't just destroy the city, they effectively erased its history. See, the victors don't just win the war, they get to write the official story. And it was way better for them to paint their greatest foe as a monster fueled by irrational hate instead of, say, a brilliant strategist defending his home.
Okay, so check this out, because this is a huge clue. Our two main historical sources, a Greek guy named Polybius and a Roman historian named Livy, they actually report the oath differently. Polybius, who is writing a bit closer to the events, says Hannibal swore never to be a friend of Rome. But Livy, writing later and with a very clear pro-Roman agenda, he amps up the drama. He changes friend to enemy. And guess which version became the blockbuster hit that echoed through history? Yeah, Livy's.
So what did friend or amicus even mean in the Roman world? Well, it wasn't about being buddies. An amicus of Rome was a client state, a subordinate. It meant you had bent the knee to Roman power. So swearing never to be a friend, that wasn't a personal vow of hatred. It was a political promise to never be conquered, to never be a subject of Rome. It's a declaration of independence, not annihilation.
Okay, so let's shift gears from the myth of the man to his undeniable genius on the battlefield. Because whatever his real motivations were, Hannibal the general was an absolute force of nature. And nowhere was that terrifying brilliance on better display than at the Battle of Cannae.
The Romans were fed up, and they decided to go all in. They marched on Cannae with a massive army of over 86,000 men. Their goal? To crush Hannibal, once and for all. And Hannibal? He faced them with just 50,000. On paper, this should have been an absolute slaughter. And it was, just not the way the Romans expected.
This is how he did it. It's one of the most brilliant tactics in military history. Hannibal turned Rome's greatest strength, its massive, unstoppable block of infantry, into its own worst enemy. He intentionally made his center weak, baiting the Romans to push forward. The legions surged in, deeper and deeper, and then, bam! Hannibal's cavalry slammed the door shut behind them, and his elite troops on the sides turned inwards. The trap was sprung. The Roman army was completely surrounded. The result was a bloodbath on an almost unimaginable scale. By the end of the day, as many as 67,500 Roman soldiers were dead. Just to give you some perspective, the level of carnage in that single day has been compared to the first day of the Battle of the Somme in World War I. It was a tactical masterpiece of pure annihilation.
So in the chaos right after the battle, with the Roman army just completely shattered and the road to the capital wide open, Hannibal's own cavalry commander, Hannibal, supposedly said this to him, basically begging him to march on Rome right then and there. But incredibly, Hannibal refused. And that refusal, that single decision, has become one of the greatest what-ifs in all of history. It's a question that has puzzled generals and historians for literally 2,000 years. I mean, seriously, why? Was it just a catastrophic failure of nerve? Was this the one massive blunder that cost him the entire war? For centuries, that's exactly how people saw it. But the reality, as always, is way more complicated, and it actually shows us a completely different side of Hannibal's genius. See, the decision not to march on Rome wasn't born out of fear. It came from cold, hard, strategic calculation. Hannibal wasn't just a master of the battlefield. He was a pragmatic thinker, always looking at the bigger picture.
Let's just look at the facts. His army, even after that huge victory, was battered and way too small to surround a massive, heavily fortified city like Rome. He had no siege engines, no giant catapults to knock down the walls, and trying to lay siege for months would have been a logistical nightmare. But here's the biggest point. His ultimate goal was probably never to burn Rome to the ground. It was to break its power by convincing its Italian allies to switch sides. He was fighting a political war just as much as a military one.
And all of this brings us right back to the beginning. It comes back to this central idea, how the story of Hannibal has been shaped and, frankly, manipulated over time, and why the legend we all know today might be more Roman propaganda than actual history.
As we've said, with Carthage totally wiped off the map, the Romans had a complete monopoly on the historical record. They needed a good story to explain how this one guy almost brought their mighty republic to its knees. And the story of a hate-filled monster from a foreign land? Well, that served their purposes perfectly.
This table just lays it all out, crystal clear. You've got Polybius, the Greek historian, who's trying to be more objective. He really respects Hannibal as a brilliant opponent. Then you have Livy. Livy is writing a patriotic, national epic for a Roman audience. He isn't just recording history. He's crafting a morality tale with obvious heroes and villains, and Hannibal was cast as the ultimate supervillain. But maybe the most powerful argument against this whole hatred myth comes from Hannibal's own actions. He repeatedly searched for the bodies of fallen Roman generals to give them a proper burial. That's a profound sign of respect for your enemy. The Romans, on the other hand, after they defeated Hannibal's brother, they cut his head off and had it thrown into Hannibal's camp. Now, when you compare those two things, you really have to ask yourself, who was the one truly motivated by hate?
You know, the story of Hannibal is such a powerful reminder that history is almost always a narrative that's been constructed by the winners. It really forces us to look critically at the stories we're told today, about heroes and villains in our own time, and to always ask that one essential question: who is holding the pen?